So Distant Flame, just finished up playing, and I feel like I've played it enough, and it's kind of, I guess for lack of a better term, hot enough that I'll talk about it real quick. So first, whenever I'm talking about a game, I usually don't mean it as a review. I'm just kind of saying what I think about it. Usually when I'm playing, it's my first play, so it's an initial impression. This, although I've played it more, it's still not going to be a review. It's just kind of thoughts off the top of my head, but it's not going to be in-depth or critical. It might be critical, but it's not meant as a thorough review of what the game is, over time. Saying that, I have played it 3 times completely. And I'm playing another 2 games on Vassal right now that one just started, one we're probably a quarter of the way through. So I feel like I have, and also I've played Ending Abyss 3 or 4 times, and I'm about to start a game of Cuba Libre. So I feel like I have a decent grip on the rules of the system, what the system's doing, what it represents. I also want to point out, I haven't played any other multiplayer war games. No successors, no, I don't know if they're war games, but I've played Here I Stand or Virgin Queen. Not enough no multiplayer war games whatsoever. So this kind of stands alone for me in that regard as something I can go to with 3 or 4 people, preferably 4, and get that still wargamey experience with more than one person. I will say I like it better with 4 people than with 2. With 2, each player will have, I haven't played it with the robots yet, but just 2 people playing 2 factions each, you kind of have a little bit too much say in what your other faction's doing at all times. And although both factions need to be in their victory conditions to win during the propaganda cards, it's not quite right. That being said, I still enjoy it. I think it's just better with 4. There's also less to think about when you're just playing 1 faction instead of 2, so that the game moves a little bit quicker because everyone's focused on what their 1 faction is doing. They can keep it going, and then it makes the game move along. So first, with this game, I think one of the hot topics of it is the subject matter. It's very current. It hits very close to home for a lot of people. It's 2003 to 2013. I was in Iraq from 2004 to 2005, I think, or 2005 2006. So the subject matter hits close to home for me, but not in a bad way. A lot of people I've spoken to don't want to play this game because of the Taliban being such bad guys or whatever. I don't get that from this. I understand if people do, but I could see being a freedom fighter. Yes, they do bad things. I'm not justifying one way or another either. Any of the factions, I should say. But I think I'd rather play something like the Taliban in this game over, playing Nazis, honestly. But not to be political, I just want to point out the subject matter of this game affects me positively more than negatively. I am more interested in this because of the Afghanistan conflict that it's representing, more than Ending Abyss or even Cuba Libre. I'm interested in those games, and I had Ending Abyss. I actually sold it anticipating this game because I don't have a ton of places to keep them. But this one definitely hits close to home for me, and that's a good thing. It connects to me emotionally. I feel like I understand where all sides of this thing are coming from, which for me is important when I'm playing a game. So the game itself, it's definitely finally balanced, extremely balanced. to the point where I would say it's fine-tuned. I mean, it's right there. We saw the first propaganda card. The Taliban was able to get within 1 point of winning with that initial setup. If they get to do their whole thing, they could get right there, but they can't win. That, you could tell there's a lot of playtesting done. There's a lot of thought put into this. The way each time someone's doing something on the board, it's affecting someone. It's either taking uncontrolled spaces from the warlords, or it's getting control, or it's gaining support, or taking support. That to me is what makes this game so good. It's the interplay, that everything is connected. I mean, it's cogs on a wheel, and that's excellent. You know, the Taliban's trying to take control of provinces away from the government, not for their own use. They just don't want the government to have control. They want, but they, you know, for their victory conditions, they don't care about it. It's just stopping the government player from winning, or the government from winning. And their opposition and bases, to me, I think the factions work together better in this than in Annie and Abyss. In Annie and Abyss, it's almost 3 against 1, but almost everyone for themselves. In this, it's almost 2-on-1-on-1 or 2-on-2, depending on what the situation is, or everyone kind of for themselves. We saw some situations where the government could have helped the coalition, but, well, you know, we're not going to pay our resources to gain you support in this province. That's the intricacy of it is fascinating, and there's definitely a lot of room in here to explore. That being said, a lot of it does come down to who gets to activate on that last card before either the propaganda card or the last propaganda card. If you can get a well-timed card and you don't want to just pass anticipating, maybe you can a little bit know that, hey, we're getting close to a propaganda card, so I'm going to pass, maybe anticipating that the next one, if there's nothing juicy for this card for me to do, you can do that. But if you pass so many times, you're going to get behind on the board to where you're going to be too far behind to make that jump on that last card. So I could see people complaining about that. I played this game face-to-face with Callendale last weekend, and he pointed that out, and it's very valid, and I know he had a problem with that with Annie and Abyss, and he mentioned on his Annie and Abyss review, he went back and edited it for this, that is an issue. And I get that. That's definitely there. You can definitely game it, that last card. But there's not as much as some other games where, and maybe part of it is that it's 4 factions. I've played a couple games where, you know, there's a set number of turns, so your last turn you know exactly, and you can calculate out exactly what you need to do and how close you can get. This, it comes to that card flip, and if you're not in position to use it, you're screwed anyway. But also, if you're not close, that last card's not going to help you anyway. So you still need to be there. You still need to be striving the whole time. That last card can be a boost if you're able to jump on it, which can be an issue. I don't think it's game-changing, but it's definitely there. You need to be aware of the timing of that last card. I mentioned earlier, I haven't played it with the robots yet. This one was obviously single player, playing all 4 factions as each player would. I'm going to play it. I'm going to finish the 2 games I'm doing up on Vassal right now, and then I think I'm going to go through and read the rest of the robot rules and revisit it that way. I do like the next game I'm going to play is D-Day at Omaha Beach again. I do like AI in board games, and I never played Annie and Abyss with AI in that, so I think that's the next step in my coin explorations is figuring out how the AI works, and I'll probably come down and sit down again after that I don't know if I'll necessarily video while I'm doing it, but I did want to mention that I haven't played that. I'm not going to talk about that. It's just the 4-player interaction. So if counterinsurgency in modern conflict, on the podcast I do, Advance After Combat, we talked about Labyrinth, which is Volko's other game on Afghanistan, and if it's a war game, and I'll save that whole discussion. But part of what I'm interested in about these modern conflicts is there is more politics to it, and it has to be represented in. Maybe it makes it not a war game. I think it does. I think there's more politics than necessarily boots on the ground fighting happening in our conflicts right now, and these coin games represent that very, very well. It's taking in the give and take, the tug of war between all of the factions in this thing, for each faction trying to pull out what they want for their victory. And it's not just, you know, two things slamming up against each other. It's very interactive. There's a lot of interplay between them, and I think modern conflicts are more that way. So if you're interested in modern conflicts, you know, anything pretty much post World War II, I think people are exploring in this system. There's Colombia, there's Cuba, there's a Vietnam game coming out, someone's working on a Philippines game, someone's working on an Irish game. All of these modern conflicts with all of the politics and all of the interplay that happens in them, I think is very much representative of how conflicts are now. So if you're interested in it, definitely check out one of these games. If you're more interested in, you know, the Cuban Revolution, check out Cuba Libre. The drug war in Colombia, check out Anti-Abyss. For the war on terror, A Distant Plain is definitely excellent.